A billionaire gave a waitress and her 2 children $1,000 at Christmas, but the next day he finds her at his wife's grave. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon filled the air at the Evergreen Cafe, a small, cozy spot in the heart of a bustling American town. Garlands and twinkling lights decorated the exposed brick walls, creating a welcoming atmosphere that contrasted with the biting cold outside. Snowflakes drifted gently beyond the foggy windows, while the hum of conversation and the clink of cups formed the soundtrack of that Christmas Eve. Marie Brown, a 35-year-old woman with hazel eyes and brown hair pulled back into a loose bun, moved gracefully among the tables. Her tired yet sincere smile lit up her face, marked by the passage of time and worry. Wearing a red apron over her black uniform, she carried a tray full of steaming mugs and plates of holiday pies. "Here's your hot chocolate with marshmallows, Mrs. Bennett," Marie said, placing a decorated mug in front of an elderly lady. "Just the way you like it." Mrs. Bennett smiled gratefully. "Oh, Marie, dear, you always remember. How are the twins?" Marie sighed, her smile faltering for just a moment. "Thomas and Sophie are fine, thank you." "Excited about Christmas, as always?" As she walked away, Marie let out an almost imperceptible sigh. The 8-year-old twins were at home with the neighbor. The cost of a babysitter was yet another weight on her already tight budget, but she had no choice. Working a double shift on Christmas Eve meant extra tips, and every penny counted. At the corner table, partially hidden by an impressive Christmas tree, James Harrison observed the scene with interest. At 60 years old, the widowed billionaire carried an aura of both power and solitude. His impeccable suit and gold watch stood in contrast to the cafe's simple warmth. James noted how Marie moved from table to table, always with a smile and a kind word, even as her back slightly bent under the weight of the tray and her exhaustion. He saw her help a young man clean up spilled coffee, comfort a crying child with an extra cookie, and patiently listen to the repetitive stories of an elderly customer. Intrigued, James called Marie over to his table. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I couldn't help noticing your dedication. You really love your job, don't you?" Marie, surprised by the observation, hesitated for a moment. "Well, sir, I love people. The job, well, it pays the bills." She shrugged, her smile revealing a mix of pride and resignation. "And what about your family? It must be hard working on Christmas Eve," James commented, his voice betraying a genuine curiosity. Marie's eyes softened. "I have twins at home, Thomas and Sophie. They understand that mommy needs to work, but—" She left the sentence hanging, her gaze drifting toward the window where the snow continued to fall. James nodded, a shadow of sadness passing through his eyes. "I understand. Life isn't always easy, is it?" "No, sir, it isn't," Marie agreed softly. "But there are always reasons to smile. Speaking of which, can I get you anything else?" James asked for the check, watching Marie walk away to attend to other customers. He saw her interact with each person as if they were the most important in the world, despite the obvious tiredness in her eyes. When Marie returned with the bill, James had already made a decision. He took out a few bills from his wallet, placing them discreetly under the saucer. "Merry Christmas, Marie," he said gently. "I hope this brings a bit more joy to you and your children." Marie, distracted by another table calling for her, thanked him automatically and turned to help the next customer. It was only after James had already left that she noticed the size of the tip, $1,000. Her hands trembled as she held the bills, unexpected tears blurring her vision. With this money, she could buy the presents the twins so dearly wanted, pay some overdue bills, and maybe, just maybe, allow herself a small luxury. Marie looked toward the door, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious benefactor, but he had already vanished into the snowy night. Who was that man? Why had he been so generous to a stranger? As she tucked the bills into her apron, Marie could not imagine that this gesture of kindness was only the beginning. Fate had interwoven their lives in a way neither could foresee, and the true Christmas miracle was just beginning to unfold. Christmas morning dawned cold and silent. The local cemetery, covered by a pristine blanket of snow, felt like a world apart, isolated from the festive bustle of the town. Marie Brown walked slowly among the headstones, her footsteps cracking the icy crust with gentle snaps. Dressed in a faded red coat, Marie held a small bouquet of white flowers. Her face, usually brightened by the smile she offered customers at the cafe, was now serious and thoughtful. She stopped before a white marble headstone bearing the name Clare Harrison in gold letters. "Merry Christmas, Clare," Marie whispered, placing the flowers at the base of the tombstone. Her fingers gently traced the name carved into the cold stone. "I miss you, my friend." Marie closed her eyes, allowing memories to flood her mind. Clare, with her sparkling blue eyes and contagious smile, sitting at her usual table in the Evergreen Cafe. The long conversations about dreams and hopes, the shared laughter, the quiet support during hard times. A vivid flashback appeared, Clare, radiant in her floral summer dress, leaning over the cafe's counter. "Marie, dear, you can't give up on your dreams," she had said, her eyes shining with determination. "Promise me you'll go back to studying nursing someday." Marie smiled sadly at the memory. "I still haven't fulfilled that promise, Clare," she murmured. "But I haven't given up, I just need more time." Lost in her reflections, Marie didn't notice the figure approaching until a deep, familiar voice broke the silence. "Marie, what are you doing here?" She turned, surprised, to find James Harrison standing a few steps away, a bouquet of red roses in his hands. The shock on his face was evident. "Mr. Harrison," Marie stammered, suddenly feeling like an intruder. I came to visit Clare. We were friends." James frowned, confused. "Friends? Clare never mentioned—" "We met at the cafe," Marie explained gently. "Clare was a regular customer. Over time we became close." A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the soft rustle of the wind in the snow-covered trees. James approached slowly, his eyes flickering between Marie and his wife's headstone. "Clare talked a lot about you," Marie continued, her voice trembling. "About your travels, your projects. She was so proud of the work you two did." James blinked, surprised. "She talked about me," Marie nodded, a small smile appearing on her lips. "Oh yes, Clare loved to recount the time you both got lost in Venice and ended up discovering that tiny restaurant by the canal." James's eyes widened at the memory. "I had no idea she shared those stories." "Clare loved to share," Marie said softly, "especially about the work you both did with underprivileged children. She's the one who inspired me to volunteer on weekends." James looked at Marie with a new perspective. This woman, whom he knew only as a kind waitress, suddenly revealed herself as an unexpected connection to his late wife. "Why didn't she ever tell me about you?" James asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and a hint of hurt. Marie hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Clare, she knew I preferred to keep my life private. With the twins and all, I think she respected that." A flashback rose in Marie's mind. Clare, tears in her eyes, hugging her tightly on the day Marie revealed that her ex-husband had left, abandoning her with the children. "You're stronger than you think, Marie," Clare had whispered, "and you'll never be alone." "I promise." James watched the emotions play across Marie's face, feeling an unexpected connection to this woman who held such precious memories of Clare. "She changed my life, you know," Marie said softly, turning her gaze back to the headstone. "Clare always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." James nodded slowly, feeling a lump in his throat. She had that gift, seeing the best in people. For a moment, they stood in silence, united in their shared loss. Snow began to fall gently, tiny flakes dancing in the cold air. "Mr. Harrison," Marie began hesitantly, "I know it might seem strange, but would you like to share a coffee someday? I have so many stories about Clare I'd love to tell." James looked at Marie, seeing in her a reflection of Clare's love and kindness. Slowly, a small smile appeared on his lips. "I'd like that very much, Marie," he replied. "And please, call me James." As they said their farewells, each leaving their flowers at Clare's headstone, Marie and James felt something had changed. An unexpected bond had formed, a link forged by the memory of an extraordinary woman who had touched their lives in profound, lasting ways. As they left the cemetery side by side, They could not imagine how this casual meeting on Christmas Day would be the start of a journey that would change their lives forever. Clare's legacy of love and kindness continued to echo, uniting two strangers on a path of healing, hope, and perhaps a new beginning. The Evergreen Cafe was quiet that winter afternoon. Marie had invited James to talk after her shift, and now the two sat at a corner table, steaming cups of coffee before them. The soft glow of vintage lamps cast a welcoming light, creating an intimate, comfortable atmosphere. James looked around, noticing the details of the cafe for the first time. "So this was where Claire spent her time," he murmured, more to himself than to Marie. Marie nodded, a nostalgic smile on her lips. Almost every day, she always sat at that table near the window. Marie pointed to an empty table where a small vase with a single white flower stood. "We keep that flower there in her memory." James felt a lump in his throat. "I had no idea. She never mentioned this place." "Claire loved the simplicity here," Marie explained softly. "She said it was her refuge from the busy world outside." James frowned, a pang of guilt in his chest. "I was always so busy traveling. I guess I missed a lot." Marie hesitated for a moment, then decided to share. "James, Claire talked about you a lot. Always with pride and love." "Really?" James asked, his voice revealing a vulnerability that surprised them both. Marie smiled. "Oh, yes. She used to tell me all about your projects, your ideas for helping people. Claire believed so strongly in the work you two were doing." James fell silent for a moment, absorbing her words. Then, with a sigh, he asked, "Marie, you mentioned Claire did volunteer work. Can you tell me more about that?" Marie's eyes lit up. "Claire was amazing with the kids at the community center. She went there 3 times a week, you know. She helped with tutoring, organized events." James blinked, surprised. 3 times a week? "I had no idea," Marie continued, her voice full of admiration. "There was this boy, Peter. He had learning difficulties, and his parents were about to give up. Claire spent extra hours with him, developed special teaching methods. By the end of the year, Peter was reading at his grade level." James felt a mixture of pride and sadness. That sounds just like Claire. Always going the extra mile for those in need. "Oh, and there was the art project she started," Marie exclaimed, her eyes shining with the memory. "Claire got donations of supplies and started painting classes for the children. You should have seen the exhibition we organized here at the cafe. The walls were covered in color and joy." James looked around, imagining the cafe transformed by children's artwork. "I wish I had seen that," he murmured. Marie hesitated, then stood up. "Wait a moment," she said, disappearing into the back of the cafe. When she returned, she carried a small framed painting. "This is the painting Peter made for Claire. She left it here, saying it belonged to the cafe as much as it did to her." James took the frame carefully. It was a simple painting, but full of emotion, a group of colorful figures holding hands, with one central figure with golden hair that could only be Claire. In the corner, in childish letters, it read, "For Mrs. Clare, who taught me how to fly." James felt tears forming in his eyes. I didn't know how much she was doing, how much she meant to these children." Marie gently placed a hand over James's. "Claire was a light in the lives of many people here. She didn't just give money or time, you know. She truly cared, connected with each person." James nodded slowly, absorbing everything. "She was always like that, ever since I met her, always worried about others. I guess I never realized how much she did when I wasn't around." Marie smiled softly. "Claire understood your dedication to your work, James. She spoke about how your projects were changing lives around the world. But I think here, in this cafe and at the community center, she found a way to make a difference daily, personally." James looked at Marie with new appreciation. "And what about you? How did Claire impact your life?" Marie fell silent for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "Claire saw me when I felt invisible. After my ex-husband left, leaving me alone with the twins, I was lost. Claire was the first to really see me, to offer more than sympathy." She paused, taking a sip of her coffee before continuing. "There were days when I could barely smile at the customers. Claire always noticed. She'd sit at the counter, order a coffee, and start telling funny stories about your travels. Before I knew it, I'd be laughing again." James smiled, remembering Claire's gift for storytelling. She always knew how to brighten a room. Marie nodded. "But it wasn't just that. Claire encouraged me to dream again. She found out I had abandoned my nursing studies and didn't rest until I promised I'd go back someday." "Have you?" James asked gently. Marie shook her head, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Not yet. With the twins and the bills. But I haven't given up. Claire made me promise I wouldn't give up on my dreams." James sat quietly for a moment, processing all he had learned. Claire, his Claire, had touched so many lives in ways he never imagined. There was a side of her he never really knew, a side that flourished in this little cafe and the community around it. "Marie," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion, "thank you for sharing all this with me. I feel as if I'm getting to know Claire all over again, seeing her through the eyes of those she touched." Marie smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Claire always said that true wealth lies in the connections we make, in the lives we touch. She lived that philosophy every day." James nodded, feeling a mix of pain and gratitude. I wish I had been more present, seen more of this side of her." "Don't blame yourself, James," Marie said gently. Claire understood. She knew the work you both did was important. She just found her own way to make a difference here. James looked out the window, watching the gentle snowfall. "You know, Marie, I think Claire is still making a difference. Here we are, two strangers, connected by her." Marie smiled, nodding. "She had that gift, didn't she? Bringing people together, building bridges." "Yes," James agreed, turning his gaze back to Marie. "And I think, somehow, she's still doing that." As they finished their coffee, James felt something change inside him. The pain of losing Claire was still there, but now there was something else, a sense of purpose, a desire to honor the legacy of love and compassion she had left behind. "Marie," he said, as they finally rose to leave, "would you like to visit the community center someday, see the work Claire did there?" Marie's eyes lit up. "I'd love to show you, James. The kids would be so happy to meet Mrs. Clare's husband." As they left the cafe, snow falling softly around them, James felt as if he were taking the first steps on a new journey, a journey to rediscover Claire, to honor her legacy, and maybe to find a new direction in his own life. Beside him, Marie smiled, feeling that somehow Claire had orchestrated this meeting, bringing two lonely souls together on a path of healing and renewal. Claire's spirit, her love and compassion, lived on, touching lives and creating connections, even after her departure. Marie's apartment was small but welcoming. Toys scattered on the floor and colorful drawings on the walls bore witness to the vibrant presence of two children. James Harrison felt a bit out of place in this environment, so different from his spacious mansion, but at the same time, there was something comforting in the home's simplicity and warmth. Marie guided James into the living room, where Thomas and Sophie, both 8, sat on the rug, absorbed in a board game. When they saw the visitor, the children's eyes widened with curiosity. "Thomas, Sophie," Marie called softly. "This is Mr. Harrison. He was Mrs. Clare's husband." The twins stood up immediately, their faces lighting up with recognition. "Mrs. Clare's husband," Sophie exclaimed, and her blue eyes shining. "She talked about you all the time." James felt a tightness in his chest. "Really? What did she say?" Thomas, with a shy smile, answered, "She said you were like a superhero who traveled the world helping people." James couldn't help a small smile. "Well, I don't know if I'm a superhero, but we tried to make a difference." Sophie approached, gently taking James's hand and leading him to the couch. "Want to see what Mrs. Clare gave us?" Before James could answer, the twins ran off to their rooms. They returned moments later, arms full of small treasures, books, educational toys, and a box of art supplies. "Mrs. Clare taught me to read with this book," Thomas said proudly, showing a well-worn storybook. Sophie held up a small plastic microscope, "And she gave me this when I said I wanted to be a scientist. We spent hours looking at leaves and bugs." James took the items carefully, feeling as though he were touching tangible pieces of Claire's love. She always knew how to choose the perfect gifts, he murmured. Marie, observing the scene with a gentle smile, said, Claire had a gift for understanding children. She always said each child is a universe waiting to be explored. The twins kept sharing stories, their voices overlapping with excitement. Remember when Mrs. Clare took us to the museum, Mom? Thomas asked, his eyes bright. She knew everything about dinosaurs, Sophie added. And when she taught us to bake cookies, the kitchen was a mess, but it was so much fun. James listened, amazed. Each story revealed a side of Claire he barely knew, patient, playful, deeply involved in these children's lives. Did she come here often? James asked Marie. Marie nodded. At least once a week. Sometimes she stayed for dinner. The twins adored her. Sophie, suddenly remembering something, ran to her room again. She returned carrying a large photo album. Look, Mr. Harrison, she said, opening the album on James's lap. Mrs. Clare made this for us. James was speechless as he turned the pages. The album was filled with photos. Claire with the twins at the park, having picnics. Claire helping Thomas with homework. Claire and Sophie doing science experiments in the kitchen. Each photo captured pure joy. Claire's radiant smile lighting up every page. She took pictures all the time, Marie explained softly. Said she wanted to capture every precious moment. James stopped at one particularly touching photo. Claire on the couch, a twin snuggled on each side as she read them a book. Her eyes shone with love and contentment. I didn't know, James murmured, his voice choked. I didn't know how much she meant to you. Sensing James's emotion, Thomas approached and placed a small hand on his arm. Mrs. Clare spoke very highly of you too, Mr. Harrison. She always said you were the kindest man she knew. Sophie agreed, adding, she showed us pictures from your trips. She said one day she wanted to take us to see the world too. James felt tears welling in his eyes. She would have loved that, he said softly. Marie, sensing the intensity of the moment, suggested the children show James their latest art project inspired by Claire. As the twins ran off to get their drawings, James looked at Marie, a mixture of gratitude and sadness on his face. How could I not have known this part of her life? He asked, more to himself than to her. Marie sat beside him, her voice gentle. Claire understood how important your work was. She found her own way to make a difference here while you made a difference out there. James nodded slowly, flipping through more album pages. He stopped at a photo of Claire at the Evergreen Cafe, surrounded by children, probably from the community center. Her smile was radiant, her eyes full of life. She looked so happy, James commented. She was, Marie confirmed. Claire loved being here with the kids, making small differences every day. The twins returned, proudly holding their drawings. Sophie had drawn a colorful portrait of Claire with angel wings and a halo. Thomas had drawn a scene of the park, with Claire pushing the twins on a swing. James examined the drawings carefully, praising the children's talent. Claire always loved art, he said, smiling at the memory. She would be so proud of you. Encouraged by James's interest, Sophie asked timidly, Mr. Harrison, could you tell us some stories about Mrs. Clare, about your adventures? The request caught James by surprise, but he felt a wave of warmth in his chest. Sure, he replied softly. How about I tell you about the time Claire and I got lost in the Amazon rainforest? The twins' eyes grew wide with excitement, and even Marie leaned in, interested. James began to narrate, his voice gaining life as he recalled the details of the adventure. As James spoke, Marie watched the scene with mixed emotions. Seeing James interact with her children, sharing memories of Claire, was both sweet and bittersweet. It was as if Claire were there somehow, bringing them all together. The hours passed quickly, filled with stories, laughter, and a few tears. When it was time for James to leave, the twins hugged him spontaneously, catching him off guard. Come back soon, Mr. Harrison, Thomas pleaded. Yes, we want to hear more stories, Sophie added. James, visibly moved, nodded. I'd love to return, if your mom allows it. Marie smiled, nodding. You're always welcome, James. As James said his goodbyes, he paused at the door, looking back at the cozy scene of the small family. At that moment, He understood why Clare loved being here so much. It wasn't just about making a difference, it was about belonging, about forming deep and meaningful connections. "Thank you," he said to Marie, his voice filled with emotion, "for sharing this part of Clare's life with me. It means more than I can express." Marie smiled gently. "Clare brought us together in a way none of us could have predicted. I think that's how she would have wanted it." As James descended the steps of the building, he felt as though a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The pain of losing Clare was still there, but now there was something more, a sense of purpose, a connection to the legacy of love she had left behind. He looked up at the night sky, the stars softly twinkling. "Thank you, Clare," he whispered, "for everything." As he walked through the city's lighted streets, James knew his journey was only beginning. A journey to honor Clare's memory, to continue her work of love and compassion, and perhaps to find a new family in the process. The Evergreen Cafe was closed to the public that night. Marie and James sat at a corner table, the soft glow of vintage lamps creating an intimate atmosphere. On the worn wooden table between them lay a brown leather journal, its pages slightly yellowed with age. Marie touched the journal reverently. "Clare gave this to me a week before she passed," she said softly. "She said that if anything happened to her, I should share it with you when the time was right." James looked at the journal, his heart pounding. Why did she never mention this to me? Marie hesitated. "I think she wanted to protect you, James. Clare knew how dedicated you were to your work. She didn't want you feeling guilty for not always being around." With trembling hands, James opened the journal. Clare's elegant handwriting filled the pages, bringing her back to life in a way that made his heart ache. "May I read a few passages to you?" Marie asked gently. James nodded, unable to speak. Marie flipped through the pages until she found a specific entry. "Today, James left for another trip. I miss him terribly, but I understand the importance of what we do. While he changes the world out there, I've found my own way to make a difference here. The faces of the children at the community center when they learn something new, it's like watching the sunrise. Sometimes I wonder if James would understand this joy in the little things." James closed his eyes, feeling the weight of those words. "I should have been more present," he murmured. Marie placed a comforting hand over his. "Clare didn't write this to make you feel guilty, James. She was proud of your work." She turned a few pages and read another passage. "I spent the afternoon with Marie and the twins today. Thomas finally managed to read an entire book on his own, and the pride in his eyes. It was magical. Sophie showed me her science project. She has such a brilliant mind. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to have our own children. But then I realize that, in a way, I already have a family here. I hope one day James can know this side of my life." James felt tears forming in his eyes. I didn't know how much this meant to her." Marie continued reading. "I had an idea today. I want to expand our volunteer work here in town. There are so many kids who need support, opportunities. I imagine a bigger center, with art programs, music, tutoring, a place where every child can discover their potential. I need to talk to James about this when he returns. Maybe it's time to bring some of our work closer to home." James looked at Marie, surprised. "She never mentioned this to me." Marie gave a sad smile. Clare was waiting for the right moment. "She wanted to have a concrete plan before presenting the idea to you." They continued reading, discovering more about Clare's dreams and hopes, her love for the community, and her admiration for James's work. Each word was both a balm and a wound for James, showing him a side of his wife he had never fully known. One entry in particular caught James's attention. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being selfish for wanting James closer to home. The work he does is so important. But then I see the impact we can have here, in our own community, and I dream of what we could achieve together. I hope one day we can find a balance between changing the world out there and nurturing our own community here." James closed the journal, feeling emotionally drained. "I should have realized. I should have been more present." Marie looked at him with compassion. James and Clare understood. She held no resentment. She just found her own way to make a difference while you were away. "But I missed so much," James said, his voice choked. "All these experiences, these moments." Marie took his hands in hers. It's not too late, James. Claire left a legacy here, a legacy you can continue. James looked at her, a spark of hope in his eyes. How? The community center Claire mentioned, Marie began. We could make it a reality, expand the programs, create more opportunities for the children. It would be a way to honor Claire's memory and continue her work. James nodded slowly, the gears of his mind beginning to turn. Yes, we could do that. Use the Foundation's resources. Bring some of our international programs here. Marie smiled, seeing the light return to James's eyes. And it wouldn't just be about donations, James. Claire valued personal involvement. Maybe you could spend more time here. Meet the children, see the direct impact of your work. James looked at the journal, then back at Marie. Do you think Claire would approve? I'm sure she would, Marie said softly. In fact, I think it's exactly what she hoped for. James remained silent for a moment, taking it all in. Then, with new determination in his voice, he said, Let's do it, Marie. Let's fulfill Claire's dream. Marie smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. She would be so happy, James. And you know what? I think this could be good for you too, finding a purpose here, connecting with the community Claire loved so much. James nodded, feeling a mix of emotions, sadness for the loss, regret for lost time, but also hope for the future. Thank you, Marie, for sharing this with me, for helping me understand Claire better. Marie gently squeezed his hand. Claire brought us together for a reason, James. Maybe it's time we honor her memory by working together to realize her dreams. As they prepared to leave the cafe, James paused for a moment, looking around. He could almost see Claire there, smiling at her favorite table, planning ways to make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. We'll make it happen, he said softly. For Claire. Marie nodded, a warm smile on her face. For Claire, and for all the lives she touched and will continue to touch through us. As they stepped into the cold night, James felt as though a new chapter was beginning, a chapter of healing, renewed purpose, and honoring Claire's legacy of love and compassion. And beside him, Marie walked, an unexpected ally on this new journey, united by the love they shared for an extraordinary woman who continued to inspire them even after her departure. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of the Evergreen Cafe, casting dancing shadows over the empty tables. James and Marie sat in a discreet corner, cups of coffee cooling between them. Claire's journal lay on the table, a silent yet powerful presence. James studied Marie with renewed attention, noticing the subtle signs of stress and fatigue on her face. Marie, he began hesitantly, Claire mentioned in the journal that you were going through hardships. Is that still true? Marie averted her gaze, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Things are tight, she admitted reluctantly, but we're getting by. James felt a pang of guilt. How had he not noticed before? A sudden flashback hit him. Claire, months ago, asking to increase her personal allowance. At the time, he hadn't questioned it, too busy with his projects. Now he wondered how many of those extras had gone to help Marie and the twins. Claire was helping you, wasn't she? He asked softly. Marie nodded, tears shining in her eyes. She was so discreet about it. She'd show up with leftover groceries or insist on paying for outings with the twins. I tried to refuse, but Claire, she had a way of making you feel good about accepting help. James closed his eyes, remembering another moment. Claire, smiling enigmatically as she bought extra school supplies. For the community center, she'd said. Now he wondered how many of those supplies ended up in Thomas and Sophie's backpacks. Why didn't you tell me? James asked, his voice a mix of concern and frustration. Marie straightened her shoulders, a spark of pride in her eyes. It's not your responsibility, James. I have 2 jobs. I do my best to give the twins a decent life. We don't need charity. James leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. It's not charity, Marie. It's family. Claire considered you and the twins family. That's clear in every page of her journal. And family takes care of each other. Marie bit her lip, clearly conflicted. I don't want to be a burden. We owe Claire so much already. James felt a whirlwind of emotions. The desire to help, mixed with the fear of overstepping, of ruining the delicate balance that had formed between them. How could he offer help without diminishing Marie's independence, which she clearly valued? At that moment, the cafe door opened, and Thomas and Sophie burst in, bringing a wave of energy and joy with them. "Mom! Mr. Harrison!" Sophie exclaimed, her eyes shining. "Look what we did at school today!" The twins approached the table, proudly displaying colorful drawings. Thomas had drawn a rocket, while Sophie showed an intricate underwater scene. James praised the drawings, genuinely impressed by the children's talent. But he couldn't help noticing their worn-down crayons and the low-quality paper. Marie, noticing James's gaze, quickly changed the subject. "Who wants hot chocolate?" she asked, forcing a smile. "Me!" the twins shouted in unison. While Marie headed to the counter to make the drinks, James stayed with the children. Thomas, always observant, noticed the tension in the air. "Mr. Harrison," he said quietly, "is Mom sad?" James was taken aback by the question. "Why do you think that, Thomas?" Sophie intervened, her voice too serious for a child her age. "She works so much. And sometimes, when she thinks we're not looking, she seems tired." James's heart clenched. These children were far more perceptive than adults realized. "Your mum loves you very much," he said carefully. "She just wants to give you the best." Thomas nodded solemnly. "We know. That's why we try to be good and not ask for expensive things." Sophie added, "Yeah, like that time we pretended we didn't want to go to the zoo because we knew it was too expensive." James felt a wave of admiration for these children and a renewed determination to find a way to help this family. Marie returned with the hot chocolates, and the twins immediately began chattering about their day at school. The previous tension seemed to dissipate, replaced by the children's infectious joy. While the twins chattered on, James observed Marie. He could see the love in her eyes as she looked at her children, but also noticed the lines of worry that appeared when she thought no one was watching. Deciding to take a risk, James spoke up. "Marie, I've been thinking, the community center Clare wanted to expand. I think we can really make it happen, and we could use someone to manage the project. Someone who knows the community, who has experience working with kids." Marie looked at him, a mix of hope and caution in her eyes. "James, it's not charity," he insisted gently. "It's a job opportunity, a chance to continue Claire's legacy. And, well, it might also help with some of the worries you mentioned." Marie fell silent for a long moment, clearly conflicted. The twins, sensing the importance of the conversation, fell quiet, looking from one adult to the other. Finally, Marie spoke, her voice trembling but determined. I'd like to think about it. It's a generous offer, James, but I need to be sure it's the right decision for us." James nodded, respecting her caution. "Of course, take all the time you need. The offer stands." Sophie, unable to contain her curiosity, asked, "Mom, does that mean you might work with Mr. Harrison, like Mrs. Clare did?" Marie gave her daughter a gentle smile. "I don't know yet, sweetheart, but it's a possibility." Thomas, ever the pragmatist, added, "That would be cool. Maybe then you wouldn't have to work so many hours, Mom." Marie blinked rapidly, touched by her son's perception. James, feeling the need to lighten the moment, suggested, "How about a game? Claire always said you two were unbeatable at Uno." The twins' faces lit up. "Yes," they shouted in unison. As Marie went to find the deck of cards, James reflected on the complexity of the situation. He wanted to help, to honor Claire's desire to take care of this family, but he also respected Marie's pride and independence. Finding the right balance would be a challenge, but one he was determined to meet. As the afternoon wore on, filled with laughter and friendly competition, James felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced since Claire's death. Watching Marie and the twins, he realized that, in some way, Claire had given him a final gift, a chance to rediscover the meaning of family and purpose. And as the last rays of sunlight danced through the cafe's windows, James made a silent promise to Claire. He would find a way to help this family, to honor her legacy and maybe, in the process, heal his own broken heart. The city park was quiet that autumn morning. James and Marie strolled side by side along a path covered in golden leaves, the fresh air carrying the scent of damp earth and change. In the distance, Thomas and Sophie played happily on the playground, their laughter echoing among the trees. James glanced at Marie, noticing the thoughtful expression on her face. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. Marie hesitated for a moment before answering. "I was remembering when I met Claire. It was right here in this park, actually." James stopped walking, surprised. "I never knew that. How was it?" Marie smiled, a distant look in her eyes. "I had just moved to this town. I was pregnant, alone, scared. I sat on that bench over there," she pointed, "and started crying. Claire appeared out of nowhere, sat next to me, and offered me a tissue." James could picture the scene clearly. Claire's kindness, her natural ability to comfort others. What happened next? Marie took a deep breath. "I told her everything. About growing up in foster homes, about the twins' father leaving me as soon as he found out I was pregnant. Claire just listened, without judging." James felt a wave of empathy. "That must have been very hard for you." Marie nodded. "It was. But Claire, she changed everything. She helped me find an apartment, got me the job at the cafe. She became the family I never had." They continued walking, the silence punctuated only by the joyful shouts of the children in the distance. "You know," Marie continued, her voice low, "I always wanted to be a nurse, to take care of others, make a difference. Claire encouraged me to pursue that dream." James looked at her curiously. "What happened?" Marie shrugged, a sad smile on her lips. "Life happened. The twins were born. The bills piled up. The dream kept getting further away." James felt a pang of guilt. How many dreams had been delayed or abandoned due to difficult circumstances? "It's never too late, you know," he said gently. Marie laughed softly. Claire said the same thing. She even started giving me basic first aid lessons. She said it was preparation for the future. James smiled, imagining Claire in her role as an impromptu teacher. She always had a way of seeing people's potential. "Yes, she did," Marie agreed, her voice full of affection. "Claire didn't just help me, James. She taught me to believe in myself, to see possibilities where I once saw only obstacles." They reached a small pond, its surface reflecting the autumn sky. Marie leaned against a tree, her eyes following Thomas and Sophie, now running along the bank, tossing pebbles into the water. "Look at them," Marie said softly, "so full of life, of possibilities." Claire loved spending time with the twins. She said they reminded her of how magical the world could be through a child's eyes. James watched the children, seeing them in a new light. "They're incredible, Marie. You've done a wonderful job raising them." Marie blushed slightly. "I had a lot of help. Claire was always there, especially during the hard times. When Thomas got sick last year and I couldn't afford the doctor, Claire showed up with a doctor friend who just happened to be in town." James chuckled quietly. "Let me guess, that friend didn't charge for the visit?" Marie nodded, smiling. Claire had a way of making things happen without it feeling like charity. She preserved people's dignity, you know. James felt a wave of admiration for his late wife. She always was like that, always thinking of others, always finding ways to help without fanfare. Marie looked at James, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Claire changed our lives, James, not just with material help, but with love, with acceptance. She gave us a family when we had none." James felt a knot in his throat. He was beginning to see Marie not just as the waitress or Claire's friend, but as a living extension of Claire's love and kindness. "Marie," he said softly, "I think I understand now why Claire loved you and the twins so much. You're an incredible person. Raising 2 kids on your own, working hard, still dreaming. Claire saw in you the same strength and compassion she had." Marie blinked quickly, moved by James's words. "I just wish she were here to see the twins grow up, to see that all her love and support weren't in vain." James placed a reassuring hand on Marie's shoulder. "She sees, Marie. Somehow, I'm sure she sees. And she would be incredibly proud of you." At that moment, Thomas and Sophie came running toward them, their faces flushed with excitement. "Mom! Uncle James!" Sophie shouted. James felt a surge of warmth at the affectionate title. "Look what we found!" The children opened their hands to reveal small, colorful stones they had collected by the pond. Marie knelt, examining the twins' treasures with genuine enthusiasm. James observed the scene, seeing clearly the love and patience Claire had so admired in Marie. While the children chatted about their discoveries, James made a silent decision. He would do what he could to help Marie realize her dreams, to give this family the opportunities they deserved. Not out of obligation or guilt, but because it was what Claire would have done. It was a way to keep her legacy alive. As they left the park that afternoon, James felt as if a new chapter was opening. A chapter of healing, new possibilities, and above all, family. Not the family he expected to have, but one that Claire, in her wisdom and love, had helped create. James's office was quiet, save for the soft ticking of the wall clock. He stared intently at Claire's portrait on his desk, as if seeking guidance. After weeks of reflection, James had made a decision. He would help Marie and the twins, not just financially, but by offering opportunities that would truly change their lives. With a determined sigh, James picked up the phone and called Marie. "I have a proposal for you," he said when she answered. "I'd like to discuss the possibility of you managing the new community center we're planning, and I want to help with the nursing studies you've always dreamed of." On the other end of the line, Marie was silent for a long moment. "James, that's very generous, but it's not charity, Marie," James interrupted gently. "It's an investment in you, in the twins, in the community. It's what Claire would have wanted." After a long conversation, Marie accepted, her voice a mix of emotion and determination. In the days that followed, changes began to unfold quickly. Marie started preparing for her studies while also getting involved in planning the new community center. Thomas and Sophie could hardly contain their excitement at the new possibilities opening up. One afternoon, James arrived at Marie's apartment with gifts for the children, new laptops to help with their schoolwork. "Uncle James," Sophie shouted, hugging him tightly. "This is amazing. Now I can do my science projects without having to use the old library computer." Thomas, more reserved, looked at the laptop with wide eyes. "This must have cost a lot," he murmured. James knelt to the boy's level. "It's an investment in your future, Thomas. You two are brilliant, and you deserve the tools to reach your potential." Marie watched the scene with a mix of gratitude and discomfort. "James, this is too much." He raised a hand, stopping her. "Marie, please, let me do this. For you, for Claire." While the children explored their new gifts, Marie pulled James aside. "I'm so grateful, James, but people are starting to talk. Some at the cafe asked if there's something more between us." James frowned. "What did you tell them?" Marie sighed. "The truth, that you're a friend, helping us in Claire's memory. But not everyone believes it." In the following week, rumors spread through the small community. At the Evergreen Cafe, customers whispered as Marie served the tables. "I heard Claire's husband is bankrolling everything for her now," an elderly lady commented to her friend. "Well, she was always close to Claire. Who knows what was really going on?" the other replied, giving Marie a meaningful look. Marie tried to ignore the comments, but it was hard. She felt torn between gratitude for James's help and discomfort at the unwanted attention. One afternoon, while Marie studied at the cafe after her shift, Sarah, a regular customer, approached her. "Marie, dear, can I talk to you for a moment?" Marie nodded, bracing herself for another unpleasant remark. "Look," Sarah began, her voice gentle, "I know people are talking, but I want you to know that not everyone thinks badly. Claire was my friend, and I know how much she loved you and the kids. If James is helping you, well, that's exactly what Claire would have wanted." Sarah's words brought tears to Marie's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "It means so much to hear that." Meanwhile, the twins were having their own struggles at school. One day, Thomas came home looking dejected. "What happened, honey?" Marie asked, worried. "Some boys at school said we only have nice things now because you have a rich boyfriend," Thomas muttered. Sophie, indignant, intervened. "I told them Uncle James is not Mom's boyfriend. He's our friend and Mrs. Claire's friend. Marie hugged her children, feeling guilty for exposing them to such situations. "You know the truth," she said softly. "That's what matters." That night, after the children were asleep, Marie called James. "Maybe we should reconsider some things," she said, her voice tired. "I don't want you or the children to suffer because of the rumors." James was silent for a moment. "Marie," he said finally, "what we're doing is right. It's Claire's legacy. We can't let petty gossip stop us from doing good." Marie felt a wave of gratitude and determination. "You're right. We won't give up." In the weeks that followed, Marie and James continued with their plans, ignoring the looks and whispers. Slowly, as the new community center took shape and Marie progressed in her studies, the community's attitude began to change. People saw how the neighborhood children benefited from the new programs. They saw Marie balancing work, studies, and volunteering with grace and determination. They saw James not as a rich boyfriend, but as a man honoring his wife's legacy. As the rumors began to fade, replaced by growing admiration, Marie reflected on how one decision, James's decision to help, inspired by Claire's love, had triggered a wave of changes. Changes that, despite initial challenges, were transforming not just her family but the whole community. And somewhere, Marie was sure, Clare was smiling. The autumn sun cast long shadows across the new community center as Marie stepped outside, tired but satisfied after a long day's work. She had barely taken a few steps when a familiar voice made her freeze. "Marie, is that really you?" She turned slowly, her heart racing, to recognize the man standing a few feet away. "Alex," she whispered, his name escaping her lips like a tense sigh. Alex, the father of the twins who had abandoned Marie years ago, gave a hesitant smile. "It's been a long time, but you look great." Marie crossed her arms defensively. "What are you doing here, Alex?" Before he could answer, James arrived, immediately sensing the tension in the air. "Is everything okay, Marie?" he asked, subtly placing himself between her and the stranger. "James, this is Alex," Marie explained, her voice trembling. "The twins' father." James's face hardened as he understood the situation. "Can I help you with something?" he asked Alex coolly. Alex looked from Marie to James, confused. I just wanted to talk, try to fix things." Marie felt a wave of anger and fear. Fix things? After 8 years? Their conversation was interrupted by the excited arrival of Thomas and Sophie, returning from a school outing. They stopped abruptly at the sight of the stranger. "Who is he, Mom?" Sophie asked, grabbing Marie's hand. Marie and James exchanged worried glances. "Kids, why don't you go with Uncle James to get some ice cream?" Marie suggested, forcing a smile. Reluctantly, James took the children, casting one last worried look at Marie. In the days that followed, Alex's presence in town caused ripples of tension. Marie was constantly on edge, fearing he might try to claim some right over the twins. Determined to protect Marie and the children, James acted swiftly. He hired a well-known family attorney and increased security around Marie's apartment and the community center. "I won't let him disrupt your lives," James assured Marie one night as they discussed the situation at the closed cafe. Marie smiled gratefully, but her eyes were full of worry. "Thank you, James, but I'm afraid this will only make things worse. People are already talking." It was true. The sudden presence of security guards and a famous lawyer in the small town didn't go unnoticed. Rumors spread quickly. The next morning, as Marie served coffee, she overheard 2 women whispering, "First that rich guy bankrolls everything for her, and now the ex shows up. Something strange is going on," one murmured. "Maybe she's using the kids to get money from both of them," the other replied, casting a critical glance at Marie. Marie felt her face burn with shame and anger, but kept her head high and continued working. Tensions reached a peak when Alex showed up at the community center, demanding to see the twins. James was there, and the situation quickly turned into a heated argument. "You have no rights to them," James shouted, losing his composure. "Where were you all these years?" "And you do," Alex retorted. "Who are you to get involved in my family?" Marie intervened, trembling but determined. "Enough! You're both scaring the children." Only then did the 2 men notice Thomas and Sophie watching the scene with wide, frightened eyes. That night, Marie sat down with the twins to try to explain the situation. "That man, he's our father?" Thomas asked, his voice small and confused. Marie nodded slowly. "Biologically, yes, but being a father is much more than that." Sophie frowned. "Is he going to take us away?" "No, sweetheart," Marie assured, hugging them. "You'll stay with me. Uncle James is helping make sure of that." The children exchanged looks. "Mom," Thomas said hesitantly, "some boys at school said Uncle James only helps us because he wants to marry you." Marie felt as if she'd been punched. "Oh dears, it's nothing like that. Uncle James was Claire's husband, remember? He helps us because we mattered to her." The children seemed to accept the explanation, but Marie could see confusion and worry in their eyes. She felt guilty for exposing them to this complicated situation. In the following days, the tension in the small community was palpable. Marie faced critical looks and whispers wherever she went. At the community center, some parents began to question whether she was a suitable influence on their children. Seeing the stress Marie was under, James tried to intervene. "I can make a public statement, clarify things," he offered. Marie shook her head. "No, James, that would only feed more rumors. We have to face this with dignity and truth." Despite her determination, Marie felt weighed down by it all. She wondered if she had made the right choice by accepting James's help, if she hadn't inadvertently made their lives more complicated. One night, as she tucked the twins into bed, Sophie asked innocently, "Mom, we're still a family, right? Even with all these strange things happening?" Marie felt tears in her eyes as she hugged her children. "Yes, my love, we'll always be a family, no matter what happens." As the children fell asleep, Marie looked out the window at the city lights. She knew the challenges were far from over, but she was determined to protect her family and the future they were building. With James's help and Claire's memory guiding her, she would face whatever lay ahead. The sun was setting over the small town, casting a golden glow over the park where Marie and James walked in silence. After weeks of tension and rumors, they both felt it was time to face some hard truths. Marie stopped near an old oak tree, its leaves rustling softly in the evening breeze. "James," she began, her voice trembling, "I think I need to tell you the whole truth about my past." James nodded, silently encouraging her to continue. "Before I met Claire, I was in a very dark place," Marie confessed, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "I grew up in foster homes, never truly belonging anywhere. When I got pregnant with the twins, I was alone and desperate. Ferratis, I almost gave up on everything." James felt a knot tighten in his throat, imagining Marie's despair. "What happened?" he asked softly. Marie smiled sadly. "Claire happened. She found me in this very park, crying on a bench. Without knowing me, she sat beside me, listened. And that day, she saved my life and the twins' lives." James closed his eyes, feeling a wave of love and pride for his late wife. "That sounds exactly like Claire," he murmured. "She did more than just help me that day," Marie continued. "Claire gave me purpose, a chance to start over. She introduced me to people in the community, helped me get the job at the cafe, even taught me how to be a mother." As Marie spoke, James began to truly understand the impact Claire had, not only on Marie, but on the entire community. He listened to stories of how Claire organized charity events at the cafe, how she spent hours advising young single mothers, how she always had a kind word or gesture of support for anyone in need. "She was the heart of this town," James realized aloud, "and I didn't even know." Marie placed a comforting hand on James's arm. "She understood why you were always traveling, doing your important work. Claire found her own way to make a difference here." James felt a mixture of pride and regret. "I should have been more present, should have seen all this." "Don't blame yourself, James," Marie said gently. "Claire was proud of the work you did together. She just expanded that work in a more personal way here." They stood in silence for a moment, absorbing it all. Then James turned to Marie, his eyes filled with understanding and gratitude. "Marie, thank you for sharing this with me," he said. "I understand now why Claire loved you and the twins so much. You were the family she created here." Marie felt tears in her eyes. "And now you're part of that family too, James. What you've been doing for us, for the community, Claire would be so proud." At that moment, something changed between them. It wasn't romance, but a deep connection, based on the love they both felt for Claire and the desire to honor her legacy. In the days that followed, the community began to notice a change. They saw James and Marie working side by side at the community center, laughing with the twins at the park, discussing new projects at the cafe. It wasn't the behavior of a romantic couple, but of a family united by something deeper. One afternoon, as James helped organize a science fair at the community center, Sarah, Claire's old friend, approached him. "You know, James," she said with a gentle smile, "I see a lot of Claire in you now. The way you dedicate yourself to this community, how you care for Marie and the children, it's exactly what she would have done." James felt a wave of emotion. "Thank you, Sarah. I'm just trying to honor her legacy." Sarah nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "And you're doing a wonderful job. We can all see it now." As the rumors dissipated, replaced by a deeper understanding, Marie and James began to think of ways to cement Claire's legacy in the community. One evening, as they sipped coffee after closing the Evergreen Cafe, Marie had an idea. "What if we created a foundation in Claire's name?" she suggested. "Something that could continue her work of helping single mothers and underprivileged kids." James's eyes lit up. "Marie, that's brilliant. We could use the company's resources to establish educational programs, medical assistance, counseling." As they discussed the details excitedly, Thomas and Sophie, who were doing their homework at a nearby table, approached curiously. "What are you talking about?" Thomas asked. Marie smiled at her children. "We're planning a special way to remember Mrs. Clare and help others like she helped us." Sophie clapped her hands excitedly. "Can we help too, please?" James knelt to the children's level. "Of course you can. In fact, you're a very important part of this. You're the reason Mrs. Clare started all this work." The twins smiled, proud to be part of something so meaningful. In the weeks that followed, the idea of Claire's foundation came to life. The entire community got involved, offering ideas, time, and resources. The Evergreen Cafe became the unofficial headquarters, with planning meetings happening after closing time. One night, as Marie closed the cafe after one of these meetings, she found an old photo fallen behind the counter. It showed Claire, beaming, with one arm around a pregnant Marie and the other around James. Marie felt tears in her eyes as she showed the photo to James. "Look," she said softly. "It's as if she knew somehow that one day we'd all be together like this." James embraced Marie, both moved by the memory of Claire and the journey that had brought them here. "She knew," he said. "Claire always had a way of bringing people together, even after she was gone." As they left the cafe that night, Marie and James felt a sense of peace and purpose. The challenges weren't over, but now they would face them together as a family, honoring Claire's legacy of love and compassion. And somewhere, they were sure, Claire was smiling, proud of what her family had become and of the good they would continue to do in her name. The lawyer's office was quiet, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. James and Marie sat side by side, tense and confused, as Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged man with thin-rimmed glasses, shuffled through a file of documents. "Mr. Harrison, Ms. Brown," the lawyer began, his voice calm but tinged with surprise. "Thank you for coming in today. I have something unexpected to share." James frowned. "What is it, Mr. Thompson?" The lawyer cleared his throat. "Well, during a routine review of Mrs. Harrison's documents, we discovered an additional will, one she kept secret." Marie's heart raced. A secret will. From Claire. Below is the continuation of the translated script from paragraph 384 onward, following all previously stated instructions. Mr. Thompson nodded, opening a folder. "Yes, and the contents are quite surprising." James leaned forward, his expression a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Please, go on." "According to this document," the lawyer explained, "Claire Harrison left a considerable fortune to Marie Brown and her children, Thomas and Sophie." The silence that followed was deafening. Marie felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. James Dedes, for his part, looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. "Our fortune?" Marie finally managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. "But how? Why?" Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses. Apparently, Mrs. Harrison had been making personal investments over the years. This fund, which she kept separate from her joint finances with Mr. Harrison, grew significantly. James was stunned. I had no idea. Claire never mentioned. The will specifies that this fund should be used to ensure Thomas and Sophie's educational future and well-being, as well as allowing Marie to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse, the lawyer continued. Marie covered her face with her hands, silent tears running down her cheeks. James, and still in shock, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. How much? James hesitated. How much did Claire leave for them? Mr. Thompson mentioned a figure that made both of them gasp. It was more money than Marie had ever imagined seeing in her entire life. After leaving the lawyer's office, Marie and James walked through the town streets in silence, both lost in thought. Finally, Marie spoke. James, I can't accept this. It's too much. There must be some mistake. James stopped, turning to face her. Marie, this was Claire's wish. This was Claire's. She wanted to ensure you and the children were secure, that you had opportunities. But what about you? Marie asked, her voice trembling. How do you feel, knowing Claire kept this a secret? James sighed deeply. I'm surprised, confused, but also proud. Claire always thought of others, always wanted to make a difference. This is just more proof of her generous heart. In the days that followed, James and Marie struggled with emotional and ethical dilemmas. Marie felt guilty about receiving so much, especially given the rumors already swirling about her relationship with James. People will think I somehow planned this, Marie confessed one evening at the closed cafe. As if I manipulated Claire, James shook his head firmly. Anyone who truly knew Claire wouldn't believe that. She made this choice on her own, Marie, because she loved you and the children. Meanwhile, the twins, now aware of the inheritance, had their own questions. Mom, Sophie asked one night, does this mean we're not poor anymore? Marie hugged her daughter. Sweetheart, we were never poor. We had love, we had each other. Money doesn't change that. Thomas, ever pragmatic, had other concerns. Will kids at school treat us differently now? James, who was helping with their homework, replied, what matters is how you treat others. Money doesn't define who you are. As the news spread through the small community, reactions were mixed. Many were genuinely happy for Marie and the children, seeing it as a well-deserved blessing. Sarah, Claire's friend, hugged Marie warmly when she heard, oh dear, this is wonderful. Claire cared so much about you. This is so typical of her. Others, however, were not so generous in their comments. First the rich husband helps her, now this. Marie heard a woman whisper at the supermarket. Some people have all the luck. Envy and rumors were hard to ignore, but Marie stood firm, focused on honoring Claire's wish and using the money responsibly. One evening, as they discussed how to manage the inheritance, James had an idea. What if we use part of the money to expand Claire's foundation, he suggested. We could help even more families, create scholarships. Marie's eyes lit up. James, that's perfect. It's exactly what Claire would have wanted. In the days that followed, they worked together to develop a plan. They decided to use part of the money to secure the twins' education and help Marie pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. The rest would be invested in the Clare's Hope Foundation, creating support programs for single mothers, scholarships for underprivileged kids, and expanding the community center's services. When they presented the plan to the community in a meeting at the Evergreen Cafe, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. People began to see the inheritance not as something that separated Marie and the twins from everyone else, but as something that brought them even closer. You're using this blessing to bless others, the local pastor commented, moved. Claire would be so proud. At the end of the meeting, James pulled Marie aside, tears shining in his eyes. You know, he said softly, at first I was shocked and even a bit hurt that Claire kept this secret. But now I understand. Marie looked at him curiously. What do you mean? James smiled, looking around at the gathered community, at Thomas and Sophie's smiling faces. Claire knew that one day we'd all come together like this. She was planting seeds for a future she wouldn't live to see. but that she knew we would build together. Marie felt tears in her eyes, nodding in agreement. She was always wiser than all of us, wasn't she? That night, after putting the twins to bed, Marie stood on her apartment balcony, looking up at the stars. She thought of Claire, and how one act of kindness years ago had blossomed into something so grand and beautiful. "Thank you, Claire," she whispered to the night sky, "for everything. I promise we'll make you proud." As the town slept, a sense of hope and possibility hovered in the air. Claire's secret will was not just about money, it was about love, trust, and the unshakable belief in the power of helping others. It was a reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts come in unexpected forms, and that a person's true legacy lives on in the lives they touch and the changes they inspire. Dawn painted the sky with shades of pink and gold as Marie walked thoughtfully through the town's empty streets. Her steps led her, almost unconsciously, to the Evergreen Cafe. Standing before its familiar facade, Marie felt the weight of the decision she needed to make. Claire's inheritance hovered over her like a cloud of possibilities and responsibilities. On one hand, the money could completely transform her life and the twins' future. On the other, Marie feared that accepting it would fundamentally change who she was and how people saw her. James found her there minutes later, 2 takeaway cups of coffee in his hands. "I thought I'd find you here," he said softly, offering her one of the cups. Marie accepted the coffee with a grateful smile. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "I keep thinking about Claire, about all this." James nodded, understanding. "I've been thinking a lot too. About Claire, about you, about everything." They entered the empty cafe, sitting at their usual table by the window. "James," Marie began hesitantly, "do you really think I should accept the inheritance? Doesn't it feel wrong somehow?" James considered the question for a moment before answering. "Marie, in the last few days, I've rethought a lot about your relationship with Claire. I've realized that you two had a connection I never fully understood." Marie felt tears forming. "Claire was more than a friend to me. She was family." "Exactly," James said softly. "And family takes care of each other. Claire wanted to take care of you and the twins, even after she was gone. Accepting the inheritance isn't wrong, Marie. It's honoring her wish to see you thrive." Marie let James's words sink in, feeling a knot of tension in her chest begin to loosen. At that moment, the cafe door opened, and Thomas and Sophie ran in, followed by Sarah, who had been watching them while Marie went for her morning walk. "Mom! Uncle James!" Sophie exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "We had an incredible idea." Thomas, usually more reserved, looked equally enthusiastic. "It's about Mrs. Clare's money," he explained. "Can we use it to help other kids like us?" Marie and James exchanged surprised and proud looks. "What do you have in mind?" James asked, genuinely curious. Sophie started talking quickly. "Well, remember how hard it was for Mum to pay for books and school materials, and how some of our friends can't go on field trips because it's too expensive," Thomas continued. "We thought we could create a fund to help kids with those things, maybe even college scholarships." Marie felt her heart fill with pride and love. Her children, who had faced so many difficulties, wanted to use their good fortune to help others. James smiled widely. "Those are wonderful ideas, kids. In fact, your mum and I were thinking of something similar." Inspired by her children's altruism, Marie felt a wave of clarity. "I think I know what we should do," she said, looking at James. "We'll create a foundation, as you suggested, the Clare's Hope Foundation." James nodded enthusiastically. "Perfect. We can use the inheritance to establish programs that help families and children in need, exactly as Claire would have wanted." As they discussed the possibilities, an idea began to take shape. Marie looked around the cafe, remembering all the times Claire had sat there, dreaming of ways to make a difference. "What if," she began, hesitant, "what if we transformed the Evergreen Cafe into something more? A community center, perhaps?" James's eyes lit up. "Marie, that's brilliant. We could keep the cafe running, but add spaces for classes, tutoring, community meetings." The children were excited about the idea, already suggesting activities and programs that could be offered. In the days that followed, the transformation began. The Evergreen Cafe remained open, but slowly subtle changes appeared. A bookshelf popped up in a corner, offering free reading materials. A small room in the back was converted into a study space. The community, initially curious and somewhat skeptical, soon embraced the change. Volunteers appeared to offer after-school tutoring. A group of elderly ladies started a knitting club, teaching their craft to interested youths. One afternoon, as Marie oversaw the installation of new computers in the study area, she noticed James standing in the doorway, watching the scene with an emotional smile. "What are you thinking?" she asked, approaching him. James shook his head, amazed. "I'm thinking how proud Claire would be. This is exactly what she would have done." Marie took James's hand, squeezing it gently. "She's here, James, in every life we touch, in every smile we bring. This is her legacy." As summer progressed, the Evergreen Cafe, now the Clare Community Center, became the town's beating heart. Mornings were still filled with the aroma of fresh coffee and friendly chatter, but afternoons and evenings buzzed with a new energy. Children ran in to do their homework at the tables, aided by volunteer tutors. Single mothers' support groups met weekly, finding a safe space to share experiences and resources. Art, music, and even computer programming classes began to be offered. Marie, balancing her cafe work with her nursing studies, now possible thanks to the inheritance, often found herself observing the transformation with a mix of admiration and gratitude. One evening, after closing, Marie found James sitting alone at a table, looking at a photo of Claire. "She knew, didn't she?" James said softly when Marie joined him. "Claire knew this would happen, that we'd do this together." Marie nodded, feeling a wave of emotion. "She always saw the best in all of us. And now, we're living up to that." James smiled, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "You know, Marie, first when I found out about the inheritance, I initially felt betrayed in a way. But now, seeing all of this," he gestured around the room, "I understand completely. Claire was investing in the future, a future she knew we would build together." Marie placed a comforting hand over his. "We're a family now, James. Different, unconventional, but a family all the same. And together, we're honoring Claire in the best possible way." As they prepared to leave, Marie took one last look around the transformed cafe. The tables where Claire once sat, dreaming of ways to make a difference, now served as the stage for the realization of those dreams. Claire's inheritance wasn't just the money she left behind. It was the love, the compassion, and the desire to make the world a better place. And now, through Marie, James, the twins, and the entire community, that legacy continued to grow and flourish, changing lives in ways Clare could only have imagined. The Evergreen Cafe, now the Clare Community Center, was festively decorated for Christmas Eve. Garlands and twinkling lights adorned the walls, and the scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. A year had passed since that fateful night, when James Harrison left a generous tip for a tired waitress, triggering a chain of events that would transform not only their lives but the entire community. Marie, dressed in her new nurse's uniform, put the finishing touches on the community Christmas tree. Each ornament had been handmade by a child or family, helped by the newly inaugurated Clare's Hope Foundation. James entered, carrying a large box of donations. His eyes lit up when he saw Marie. "Ready for the big opening?" he asked, smiling. Marie nodded, a mixture of nerves and excitement in her voice. "I can hardly believe we've come this far. Claire would be so proud." The Clare's Hope Foundation, born from the unexpected inheritance and their shared desire to honor Claire's legacy, had quickly become the heart of the community. It offered tutoring programs, medical assistance, support for single mothers, and scholarships for underprivileged children. Thomas and Sophie ran in, followed by a group of kids from the Foundation's mentorship program. The twins, now 9, had flourished in the last year, finding purpose and joy in helping other children. "Mom! Uncle James!" Sophie called, excited. "Can we show the Christmas presentation we prepared?" James laughed, playfully ruffling Sophie's hair. "Of course you can. I'm sure it will be amazing." As the children got ready, Marie pulled James aside to a quiet corner. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, noticing the gleam of emotion in his eyes. James took a deep breath, looking around the transformed space. "I'm more than all right, Marie. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The past year had been one of deep transformation for James. Working side by side with Marie at the foundation, he had rediscovered a sense of purpose he thought he'd lost with Claire's passing. He found himself laughing more, dreaming more, living more fully than he ever imagined possible again. The door to the center opened, and a crowd of familiar faces began to enter. Sarah, Claire's old friend, arrived with a tray of homemade cookies. The local pastor brought a group of volunteers, ready to help distribute gifts to families in need. Marie watched the scene with a full heart. Her dream of becoming a nurse, once so distant, was now reality. She split her time between the local hospital and the foundation's free clinic, finally feeling she was fulfilling her purpose. The lights dimmed and the children's Christmas presentation began. Thomas and Sophie led the group, telling the story of how a community came together to help one another, inspired by the love of a woman named Clare. James felt tears in his eyes as he watched. He saw Clare in every smile, in every act of kindness. He realized that, although she was gone, her love continued to grow and multiply in ways he never could have imagined. After the presentation, Marie stepped up on a small makeshift stage, James by her side. The room fell silent with anticipation. "A year ago," Marie began, her voice trembling slightly with emotion, "I was a waitress struggling to raise my children, dreaming of a better future but not knowing how to reach it." She paused, smiling at James before continuing. "Then, through an act of kindness and a series of extraordinary events, our lives changed. Not just mine and my children's, but this entire community's." James took the word. "Claire, my beloved wife and Marie's friend, left us a legacy of love and compassion. Through the Clare's Hope Foundation, we are committed to continuing that legacy, helping every child and every family achieve their dreams and potential." The room erupted in applause. Many had tears in their eyes, not of sadness, but of hope and gratitude. As the celebration continued, with music, food, and lively conversation, Marie found a moment to step away and observe. She saw James playing with a group of children, his face illuminated in a way she had never seen before. Thomas and Sophie were helping hand out presents, their faces shining with pride and joy. Sarah approached Marie, putting an arm around her shoulders. "Claire would be so proud," she said softly, "of all of you." Marie nodded, feeling a wave of emotion. "Sometimes I feel like she's still here, you know? In every life we touch, in every smile we inspire." The night wore on, and soon it was time for the traditional community Christmas photo. James, Marie, Thomas, and Sophie stood in the center, surrounded by dozens of smiling faces, foundation staff, volunteers, families who had been helped, friends. As the photographer got ready, James looked at Marie and the children. "We're a family now, aren't we?" he said quietly. Marie smiled, tears of happiness in her eyes. "Yes, we are. It's big, beautiful, unconventional family." "Say Claire's Hope," the photographer called out. As the flash went off, capturing that moment of joy and unity, everyone felt Claire's presence, not as a shadow of sadness, but as a bright light of love and hope, guiding them into a future full of possibilities. The photo, which would soon find a place of honor on the community center's wall, showed not just a group of people. It showed a transformed community, a family brought together by love and the enduring power of a single act of kindness. It was truly a new beginning, not just for James, Das, Marie, and the twins, but for everyone whose life had been touched by Claire's legacy and the chain of goodness she inspired.